think a lot of gun owners these days are just the whiniest bitches I've ever seen in my entire life.
And gun control, for example, how much do you think that's a debate that's coming up? It's really just...
You know, it's you guys did it here in one fell swoop, and I wish that could happen in my country.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek, Newtown. How many more?
how many more street corners?
Enough.
So this group is called Demand a Plan. It's, you know, being organized by Bloomberg's group, the Mayors Against Illegal Guns. And I love it.
Everybody, we're here today to talk about something very important to us and the price of our lives.
Today, hundreds of Marjory Stoneman Douglas students arrived in Washington. Fed up with school shootings in Parkland, Florida, and across the nation, upwards of 500,000 people here.
We call BS!
They say they're protesting legislative inaction. Joe Biden today.
They're going to change the gun culture because they have no agenda.
I absolutely think this is kind of like the protests of the Vietnam War.
My name is Delaney Tarr. Today and every day, we will continue to fight for those things that are right. We will take the big and we will take the small, but we will keep fighting. When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile.
Does an American citizen have a constitutional right to own a gun? They saw unarmed citizenry as in part a hedge against tyranny.
My name is Mel Bernstein, and they call me the most armed man in America. I have over 4,000 weapons in my name, over 200 machine guns. I have mortars, bazookas, tanks, half-tracks, attack jeeps, flamethrower. And
hi, it's Alice. We're in Arizona at the big city shootout. This guy's about to fire.
You know what form of government we really have?
Here we go again.
We have a constitutional republic. Take a good look at the face of the militia and the 3% movement, and our way of life will be preserved and maintained. So help us God.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
The alt-right, they take sometimes very direct inspiration from the hate groups of old.
Here's what the Second Amendment says. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed. The more research I did, the more I came to realize that my initial view was mistaken, and that the founders were in fact securing an individual right. The 5 justices who voted to affirm the right to own a gun in D.C. versus Heller had indeed made the correct decision. We first need to focus on the phrase, the right of the people. Note that the people are the only ones whose right is secured here, not the militia or a state government. And what was the word militia understood to mean at the time? Well, the Militia Act of 1792 defined militia to mean all white males 18 to 45. Today, of course, militia would include women and people of all races. In the 1790s, the phrase free state wasn't used to mean an individual state like New York or Rhode Island. Rather, it meant what we'd call today a free country, a nation free of despotism. Free state is what the framers wanted America to be. They saw an armed citizenry as in part a hedge against tyranny. This does not mean, though, that this right is unlimited. Free speech, for example, has long been subject to some narrow and reasonable regulations. But severe restrictions on owning a gun, like severe restrictions on free speech, would violate the Second Amendment as the founders understood it. The case for individual gun ownership is as strong as ever. Polls consistently show that over 2/3 of Americans believe that the Second Amendment secures the right of citizens to own a gun. So, does the Second Amendment secure an individual right to bear arms? It did when it was written, it has throughout American history, and it does today.
In the modern political world, the terms left-wing and right-wing can often be heard and misunderstood. But what do these terms mean, and where do they come from? The difference between left and right-wing ideology fundamentally comes down to the balance between individual liberty and government power. This all being said, the use of left and right to describe modern political parties is not always accurate. There are actually many different political spectrums. We are often taught the extremes of left-wing is communism and the extremes of right-wing is fascism. This is not strictly true, as the extreme authoritarian nature of fascist governments combined with left-wing economic beliefs make it hard to place on a political scale. And looking at the party's policy for yourself is often the best way to choose who gets your vote, rather than following a label blindly.
Australia's gun laws target the wrong people. They target law-abiding sporting shooters, and they do nothing to stop gun crime. If you think that you're safer when the only people in the community who have guns are the police, the military, security guards and criminals, then you've got a very strange idea of security.
What is the current position, do you think, between America, its relationship with guns, these massacres? What is the answer?
How about America get a grip with its current state of depression? And let's discuss that first, because the gun really isn't the problem.
I totally agree with everything you've just said. But what I would take issue with you is that I totally understand and respect an American's basic right to defend themselves, to own a firearm. I'm not after removing your guns. I'm after a sensible compromise.
In the hills of western Kentucky, Eve Haney fires an AR-15. Haney's a 62-year-old grandmother from Tallahassee, Florida. 57-year-old Dr. Laura Torres-Reyes is a retired Air Force colonel. 42-year-old Robin Sandoval is a mother of 3 from Austin, Texas.
Is it more fun than empowering or empowering than fun?
I think it all makes sense
Empowering
together.
and fun. It's fun. Empowering is fun.
But all of them used to hate guns.
Are you scared of
them? I was petrified of them.
I didn't want them in the house.
I didn't want them at home. I wanted to be my children's first responder. I wanted to protect them.
Gunman Stephen Paddock modified his AR-15s into fully automatic assault rifles.
Do you think there should be general civilian access to the ARs?
I do, because it's our right. It's our Second Amendment right. It really goes down to that.
I like having access to my AR. We have one for home defense.
Well, in the midst of the sexual assault investigations in East Bakersfield, many residents remain on high alert.
To better defend themselves, women are actually turning to firearms.
Just with the basic knowledge that I've learned here through the classes that I've taken, it's definitely helped.
I've definitely seen an increase in women that are just empowering themselves and saying, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to protect me.
Robert D'Alessio, who teaches self-defense classes for women at Second Amendment, says unfortunately women are targeted even more by criminals.
Firearm or weapon that I have, I know how to use and I know how to defend myself and my loved ones if the need arises.
We can't talk about guns without talking about one of the most common firearms myths, and that is that background checks stop crime. Now, before we go any further into breaking down this myth, first let's talk about what a background check is actually supposed to do. And that is to determine whether or not an individual is legally able to purchase or possess a firearm. Also history of domestic violence, even mental health history. Essentially, a background check is making an assumption about your future behaviors based on your past behaviors. So does a background check stop crime? In theory, but not in reality.
Do you want equality between men and women? If a woman is going to protect herself against a man who intends to do her serious harm, she needs to even the odds. And what's the best way for her to do that? Own a gun and know how to use it. When was the last time you heard a feminist speak out for women owning guns? You haven't, because feminists aren't for gun ownership, they're for taking guns away from women. Well, you might say, if no one owned a gun, then everybody would be safer. Yes, and it would be nice if cheesecake was a diet food. In Great Britain, where it's almost impossible to get a gun, a woman is 3 times more likely to be raped than in America, according to a study by David Kopel, professor of constitutional law at Denver University. And by the way, an assailant doesn't need a gun to be dangerous. I should add that firing a gun is very rare. Just carrying it, let alone brandishing it, is a deterrent. And isn't that the issue? Personal safety? Every year, progressives push for more and more gun control without ever considering who will pay the price. It won't be the bad guys. They always get the guns they want.
We are warriors.
In America, black women face a unique set of threats. Every 19 hours in America, a black woman is killed by a man. And once every 21 hours, a black woman is killed by a black man.
Black women should be a priority just by the numbers. More black women died as a result of intimate partner violence than black men get killed by the police.
If the life giver is not safe, then the entire group of people is not safe. The world that our daughters have to grow up in is going to be a direct correlation to what we did or what we failed to do.
I'm sorry, my name's Mark Robinson. I live It's right here in Greensboro. Lived in Greensboro all my life. I didn't have time to write a fancy speech. What I want to know is, when are you all going to start standing up for the majority? And here's who the majority is. I'm the majority. Nobody wants to put the blame where it goes, which is at the shooter's feet. We're the first ones taxed and the last ones considered and the first ones punished when things like this happen. But here's what's gonna happen. The Crips and the Bloods on the other side of town, they're not gonna turn their guns in. They're gonna hold on to it. I mean, I'm going to come down here to this city council and raise hell just like these loonies from the left do until you listen to the majority of the people in this city, and I am the majority.
I am the liberal gun owner. Yes, I'm politically liberal, but I also own guns.
Hi, this is Good Guy with Gun 77, and I just wanted to let people know that I am an American gun owner.
I'm new even out of the game. After a couple of years of deliberation and, deciding there's something I really want to do, I did end up going out and buying a gun.
I live in a rural area. I'm a grumpy old white guy, we're very conservative little kind of niche out here, and what we're trying to do is put together a sustainable lifestyle where we're not dependent on the systems that people become used to. And part of that is owning a firearm.
I told my kids on the school walkout, I love you. If you walk out that school, walk out my house. So serious. That's simple. We are a gun-owning family. Celebrities often don't know what to do. They're told what to do. Something or someone's going to punch you in your face, and you have to develop the aptitude and the fortitude to fight back. And that's just not in the physical. Yeah. We are raising a generation of kids where everyone gets a trophy, but in real life, everyone don't get a trophy. No.
My name is Johnny. I'm a law-abiding gun owner, and I am not a criminal.
I am a gun owner, but I am not an anti-government radical. I do conceal carry because I believe my personal safety is my responsibility.
Is putting a honest face with the American gun owner. I open carry. I live in Ohio. The mainstream media is saying that the vast majority of Americans are afraid of guns, or they all view American gun owners or guns themselves as something that's inherently dangerous. I don't think that's the case at all. I think the vast majority of Americans have no problem with guns, and obviously the majority of Americans own guns. I am a proud American gun owner. I'm a staunch Second Amendment supporter. I even own my own small business that I'm just a regular person. And the majority of us are, where we can debunk, some of that myth.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Twang and Bang. If you're like me, if you own guns, you probably have felt that even some of your family or friends are vilifying you because you own firearms. So we're going back 20 years. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving in 1992. And I was sitting in an extremely well-lit, very busy parking lot. You'd think it would be pretty safe. It didn't take long for somebody to start rapping on the passenger window. And he was banging and he was pointing at the door and saying, "Open up." And of course, I'm thinking, this guy is up to no good. He's not just like, "Hey, can you help me for directions," kind of thing. He's like, "Open up the truck." And so at that point, I had my hand on my pistol. The next thing I know, he's getting in the truck to sit down as I'm leveling my pistol at his head. He gets in the car and he's staring at the stick shift with my pistol pointed at his head. And I'm telling him, "Get the blank out, get the blank out." He reaches in and pulls out a pistol about this far, at which point he sees that my G20 is pointed right at his head, starts screaming like a girl, okay man, don't shoot." Gets out, runs away. Police were called and they went looking for the guy, but long story short, even though there's a record of what happened, there's no database somewhere that has that recorded as a win for an armed civilian. There's no place that keeps track of that. Know this, that if you don't have a gun to protect yourself, you wouldn't have been able to do anything in that situation. If you do carry a gun to protect yourself, it's not going to do the job by itself. Get the best training that you can.
My name is Joe Plummer, and I am a gun owner. I will never go into public and begin killing innocent men, women, and children.
I am sick of being looked at like a criminal. I am not a criminal. There is no blood on my hands. My name is John Patton. I am a law-abiding gun owner, and I am not a criminal.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why I am a proud American. I don't own a gun because I know. I don't own a gun because it feels good. I'm proud American. We learn what Americans want. And we don't want stupid. We don't want to profit here.
15 years old and I've been shooting for almost 8 years. I have become eligible for various shooting scholarships around the country to a wide array of even the most prestigious colleges that have shooting teams. Guns are not the problem, people are. Chicago, Illinois has had some of the strictest gun control laws in America enacted for the past few years, and it is currently more than twice as likely for you to be killed in Chicago as in the Afghani war. I'd also like to point out that none of the guns used in the Chicago shootings were registered or licensed to the people who used them, thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them. Thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them.
Thus even further proving that simply restricting guns will not stop criminals from using them.
Nor will restricting guns stop criminals from harming others in general. The entire foundation of the United States was formed on the principle that the government, our government, is a government of the people, for the people, by the people. And taking away the people's right to bear arms is taking away the people's power in the government.